Hey, welcome back to Monticello High School Woodshop. Today I'm going to go over laying out the side pieces for our tool tote. We're going to show a little bit about how we kind of designed this and what we need to do to lay it out so we know where to saw cut. So we've got kind of a angular cut that needs to be made on both sides, and then we also need to find the location for where we're going to drill the hole for the handle. So that's what we are going over today as we get these side pieces laid out and I'm demonstrating. So I've got, of course, one of the finished tool tote projects from in the past, and you'll see this is the 9-inch side piece. So you'll see we do have these two angle cuts here that we need to make, and then we need to drill a hole in there for the handle as well. So, and we want the location of that hole to be on center in the width of it, and of course down the right amount from the top, and it's got to be the same on both pieces so that that handle lays in the right way and goes in and isn't at an angle. So all these parts kind of have to match up with these holes and patterns that we put in there. So it's important for us to measure, mark, and lay these out and create our layout. Now, so if you notice on that board where that angle starts is actually 5.5 inches up from the bottom. So first thing you're going to do is kind of look at your 9-inch piece, and you need to kind of make some decisions based on any defects. So for example, here on this board, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got a knot right there. Now, if I say this is going to be the top where that knot is, and I'm cutting in there at an angle, chances are that angle cut is going to cut right in the middle of that knot. And that's going to leave me with an undesirable spot. It's going to kind of loosen that knot up and free it. And of course, if it doesn't pop out from my saw cut, eventually at some point over time, that will pop out as well. Likewise, if the knot is over here where I'm going to be drilling that hole, knots are a lot harder than the rest of the wood, so sometimes it's hard to drill the hole through. So we typically want to steer clear of knots altogether and not really cut into that. So I'm going to choose to turn this piece up on the other side, and this will be my bottom. So I'm going to measure first off the 5.5 inches from this side. So I'll get my tri-square out here. So, and again, as I do, I know I have 5.5 inches, so I'm just going to real quick come up here and I'll make my tick mark there at 5.5. So that's where that angle is going to start. Now I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to do the same thing over this side. Now on my tri-square, when it's over this way, my tri-square starts at 0 at the fence and goes to 8 down here. So on this side, when I flip it over, the 0 actually starts down here at the tip of the blade and runs to 8 at the fence. So I kind of have to work backwards a little bit here. Maybe I can just count, or I can subtract. Well, 8 minus 5.5 is 2.5, so I can go to 2, or I can just start my count in my inches, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Make my tick mark right there, 2. So I know where those locations and where that angle is going to start. Now, I also want to find the center, so I'm going to kind of real quick, if you recall our 1x6 board, we use nominal 1x6 boards, and the actual size of a 1x6 is 5.5. So I got to do a little bit of the math here. And I say, well, what is half of 5.5? I'm scratching my head here. These are those fractions that we haven't used probably since 4th or 5th grade, and we got to make sure that we get those right. So half of 5.5. Well, I can kind of take my whole inch number and say, well, I know half of 5 is 2.5, so I'll just kind of put that over there. And then that leaves me with the half. So if I know I got, well, half of a half is a quarter. So I got the 2.5 over here, and I got the quarter over here. I add the 2 of those together. That leaves me 2 3/4. So half of 5.5 is 2 3/4. I hope you followed my logic there with that. If you didn't, that's okay. Get with me and see me. So we'll talk about it and make sure that you are good to go. So I'm actually going to make that tick mark here at the top, and I'm going to go down just a little bit. I'm going to also make another one at 2 3/4 down here as well, and I'll tell you the reason why. I'm going to scribe a line right in the center of this board. So I'm going to use that line for 2 purposes. Obviously, my hole that I need to drill in, and make my hole is going to fall somewhere on that line. And in addition to that, I need to use that center line as reference for coming off and making the top there too. So let me draw that. So we'll scribe that. So there's my center line on there, scribed in. Now let's take a look at this toolbox again. So, okay, now notice we have a flat area up top here. So that's going to relate, of course, to this as well. So I'm going to measure that real quick, and that was 1.5 inches. So where that comes in. So now I'm not going to go off of the center. I want this to be an equal amount on both sides. So now I got to say, okay, well, what is 1/2 of 1.5? So, and here I kind of like say, well, I like to kind of relate this to students with money. So if I had $1.50 and I gave you 1/2 of my money so we could both go buy a candy bar, how much would 1/2 of $1.50 be? And the answer, of course, is 3/4. So now I'll come back from my mark here, and this is where I can make my tick mark. I can pick up on any inch line. In this case, I'm going to do the 4, and I'll come back to this side. And I want this right on the end because that's where the line is going to come to. So I'll come here with my 3/4 and make my mark. I'll go from center over 3/4, and I'll make my mark. So now I've got those out. Now, it's important to know and understand that where that tick mark intersects with that edge and where this tick mark intersects with the end, that's where I'm going to scribe my line to. So I can come back now. I can line my blade of my tri-square up, use as a straight edge, and go from tick mark to tick mark, scribe my line going that way. So I've got that line. I'll do the same thing over on the other side. So we'll scribe that line as well. So I get that in there, again, lining it up. I'm going from where the tick mark comes in at the end and where the tick mark makes contact with the edge. So, and scribe that line too. Now, you guys, I hope, are going to be doing this and keeping this flat on the table as you do it. It'll be a little easier than me trying to do it up here in the air. But I'm doing this, of course, so you can kind of see and demonstrate. So there I've got that laid out as well. Now, we also need to know, so I mentioned we're going to drill a hole somewhere on this line. So we've established that this line is in the center of this dimension in our width. But we also need a second location. So we've got 2 locations here for the position of this hole. First location is in the center of the width. The second location is going to be some type of dimension down from the top of this piece. So, and I'll real quick just take a measurement because I don't recall what we designed it at. And that is at 1 inch. So we'll come down 1 inch from the top. So, and I just make my tick mark. That's where X marks the spot. So that X marks the spot. That's where we're going to drill that 3/4 inch hole when we get to that part, and start to drill out the hole with that too. So that is how we measure, mark, and lay out for the 9-inch piece here for our side pieces for the tool tote. So practice it. Take a look at it. I want to see what you do before you actually start to cut. But once you have that perfect, then you can put the piece down, clamp it to the table, and get those corners saw cut out, and we'll drill the hole, and then we'll be just about ready to actually assemble the tool tote. So again, thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email and give me a shout out or a like on this video. Thanks.